The Way Back. The Interviews. Interview 3. Pamela Salem.
So yeah, thanks so much for doing this. So it's what, about 4 p.m. and hot, obviously.
Yes, it is hot, but it was hotter than it should have been. I like heat, but I thought there's something definitely up here. The dog was hot, I was hot. I was thinking, we've turned off the air conditioning. That would explain a lot. Trying to work out what was going wrong.
Yep.
Anyway.
So you're in Miami?
Miami Beach, which is I love, which is I just like being near the sea. It's very nice.
Yeah, lovely. Listen, it's lovely to have you, Pamela. Those of us who've been around fans for a long time have watched you and seen you around a lot. I think one of the things really distinctive about your career is your voice. I know that I've followed you in all sorts of TV shows, and before I knew who people were, I knew your voice. First from Toos in Robots of Death, but then I followed you around different BBC and other shows. So what is it? What can you give us a little bit about your history? Why do you have this rich voice that you do?
Somebody said to me, you're probably in the bar too often. That's No, I don't know. I'm just, thanks be to God that I've got a voice still. Things are beginning to drop off, so you better, you hope that as the life goes on, that stays with you. But I was born in India, and I expect you know that. And then I'm quite a mixture of things. So maybe the mixture came out helpful for a voice. I don't know. I had lots of things. When I was at drama school, I remember I was at Central and having all sorts of things put straight, because I would say things like off. You must take it off. I remember things like that, which were very colonial. Got to stop that, But I think also what's lovely is if you're lucky enough to get work that you can use a voice for, you get more and more practice at doing it. So it's just something I love doing. I've always loved reading and audio and all those sort of things, which is why I love working for Big Finish now. And the various things that we do now.
You grew up in a various number of countries. So where did you grow up and move through?
First, I grew up in India, and in fact, we have discovered we have Indian in us, which I am delighted to know. I always knew it, but now we've got it, proved with these mad genes things. And then I went to England in good old colonial fashion. They would send you to school, boarding school in England, very young, under the impression that you didn't learn anything in the country you were in. And actually, it's madness, because, of course, people have a wonderful respect for education in India. But anyway, so I was sent at like 8. No, I was 7. I was 7 when I went to boarding school, which is quite young. But they don't do that now. And also, you didn't see your parents a lot, because it was terribly expensive to travel, whereas now you find people come back, I suppose, for half terms and all sorts of things like that, So it makes you independent, but it's a strange thing. My godson went when he was 5, I think. Or was he 6? It just was taken in one stride like that. And then that was England. And so you always see India as home. And my sister, my darling sister, was still back in India. So, and in fact went a bit later than I went, because my father said at that point, why do we have to go so young? Let us stay longer here. So I had quite a gap before she came out as well. But then it was lovely, because then there were 2 of us there, And also you learn to make friends and things, because you've got to meet somebody when you're that little, to school.
So what was your father doing in India? Why were you there?
Engineering. He was an engineer, civil engineer, and had his own firm. Actually, he had one of the first. He established one of the first pension schemes in India. He was very much loved in his company. Even when we go and visit now, people, say what lovely memories they have of him. And very marvelous man, Dad. So, and then you go backwards and forwards to India, and then we went to England, and then we went to I went to university in Germany, and then I went to, well, America came later, of course, California, and then we ended up here. So I feel quite a mixture, and my family are all a mixture. Both sides of my family are very mixed up, so which is lovely
I think
for
we're all
me.
fairly mixed up. We just like to pretend we're not.
Yeah, I think it'd be really dull if you don't. I don't. My father was born in Salonika, and he's Jewish. My mother was born in Sri Lanka, and has a mysterious background. We're always trying to find out what's in my mother's background. No, so it was. It's just I never understand people who want to be all one grouping, because how interesting it is to meet all these other people, and then you can always say, oh yes, I'm a bit of you as well. People say, really, she needs to be a bit of everything. What?
What gave you a love and passion for acting? Was it being separated from your family? Did boarding school have a place in acting?
It did have an effect, because I always wanted to act. I don't know why. My sister also, she's the puppeteer and also a very good actress and voice. She does voice as well, and she's now a wonderful poet. But our parents weren't that, which is interesting. But India, I think, first of all, it encourages everything creative. It's such a wonderful, bless its heart at the moment. It's going through such a terrible time. But when I was very little, I always wanted to act, and our parents always encouraged us. We didn't have these terrible parents who say, "You will never darken a stage," And we had, when I got to boarding school, our headmistress her cousin was Sybil Thorndike, Dame Sybil Thorndike. You probably won't remember. She was a wonderful actress, and our headmistress encouraged acting. She thought that was quite good for people to do, So we didn't have these terrible blocks. I sometimes think if I'd had more blocks, I might have worked a bit harder. You look back and you think some things came too easily, and you expected them to come easily, and then it was a shock when they didn't. But that's the journey in life. And thank God I've been able to be an actress all my life. It's been such a wonderful privilege to be able to do what you want to do.
It's basically not been a major BBC production you've not been in terms of the 70s, 80s, the Need and the Line, and The Professionals. You're in movies like working with Sean Connery, like The Great Train Robbery, Never Say Never Again, All Creatures Great and Small, EastEnders. What was it like to always be turning up at a new set and working with all these different people?
That is one of the nicest things of acting, I think, is that you always meet, you become a family very quickly when you're working on these things. And then, of course, when you part again, you don't see them for years and years. And sometimes a big finish, an actor will come along that I worked with years ago, and it's like it was yesterday, as soon as you pick up. I think for my particular temperament, I love meeting new people and going to new places. I don't think everybody enjoys that, and I think it can be catastrophic sometimes if one is doing too much of that and not focusing enough, But I loved it. I never felt as if I was always doing it. You always were worried about the next job. Just occasionally, you think you've got a job to go to before one finished, and that was so thrilling because usually it was, what am I going to do next? It just wasn't. You always wondered if you were ever going to work again. At least I did. You think, and sometimes if I worried about it, I thought I'll plan a holiday, because the minute you plan something you wanted to do, you get a job. You had to really want to do it. You couldn't pretend. You had to actually arrange to do something you really wanted to do, and then something would come along. But I made such great friends in that world. And I do miss that now quite a lot. That, you know, wherever you went, there were people that you knew. So that's why I love going back to do this job. So you say hi and you slip right back into that time again, you know. That's, that's, that's really fun. That's really lovely.
What was the process for getting work back there? Did you audition for every job?
No, to start with, yes, absolutely. And then there was a sort of nice time when I think they knew you, so you didn't have to rehearse for everything. I mean, you got me going. Didn't have to audition for everything. And then it's funny, I don't know how other people find it, but you sort of go on to it's like a bridge in its age. You know, you've got to keep there, but you change the sort of person. I mean, I was often, I think, hired because I was a particular age or look or something like that. I think I did better work as I got older because you're not so worried about if your eyelashes are going to fall off. You're worried about if you're getting, you know, into the part. At least this is all me, what I was worried about. And there's this time when it's not. People can easily start to forget you. There's a wonderful pool of actors following after you, you know. So you have to try and keep visible. I always felt it's like waving on a bridge as you cross the river. I'm still here. And that's a time when you start. I started thinking of other things to do, like producing things. Produced a film in India, a documentary film on the Kite Festival. We did put on some shows. You know, you start to stretch yourself. So maybe it's terribly important to go through that time, but it's. And then one is absolutely amazed about this time still above ground, and that you come along and say, "Oh, come and do this," you know, because you can remember. You like these episodes that you did. So that's again that's very interesting to me that people still remember those things so much, especially today with all the sci-fi brilliance that's going on.
Do you mind, Pamela, if I ask you a couple of questions about some non-Doctor Who roles that you had that stick in my mind, particularly? I could ask, what can you describe Sean Connery for us? What kind of presence was he to work with? You played a pretty iconic role in Miss Moneypenny there. What was that particular film like to work on?
Well, because I had worked with him before in the first Great Train Robbery, I think he suggested me to be Penny, which was nice. He was so easygoing and funny and humorous, and we spent an awful lot of time in First Great Train Robbery laughing. And when we came to do the Bond, I think I really noticed how he paid attention. I know he's older. I know he had a different reputation when he was younger, being a real, I believe he's got fisticuffs, got into things like that. But when he was older, he fought on behalf of people who couldn't fight in the set. You know, he even said that. He said, I now can say things that I couldn't say when I was young, so I can say it for other people. There was a big battle going on when we were doing Never Say Never Again, because it was mixed up with, the Broccoli breakup. And I think a lot of that, he was very much always, I don't know, to me, he was always on the side of the little ones, us, you know. He wasn't a starry person who just kept himself at the stars. He was absolutely one of us. And the other thing I loved about him was he had a toupee and a little thin piece of toupee, and he would pull it off when the scene was over, march around in the hotel, walk out without it. You know, he still looked absolutely marvelous, of course. And that was such a lesson for people who are trying to give themselves an image, because if you keep doing that, you get so used to him both ways. It really isn't a shock to see him without, you know, the hair. It shows huge confidence. You can just do that, march around with your hair in your hand. I think that was quite interesting to me to see how it was.
The other non-Doctor Who role that really sticks in my memory, as far as you're concerned, is in the early 80s, I was just getting into my teens, and so the Tripods was a huge show for me, and you had quite a major role in that for a few episodes in series 1. Do you have any memories of that production? Was it Chris Barry who was directing your episodes?
Graham Theakston from Tripods. It was very strange because I had my dog with me there on the trip, which was wonderful. He got his own identity and he was so good and he had his own place. It was lovely working and having him with me as well. But we were down in this castle. What was it called? The castle down in...
It was the Chateau Recordo in the story, but I'm not sure what the actual location was called.
The name's gone out of my head, but the lovely girl who played my daughter, did you know at the end of that series, she had this terrible... She came back for the next series from Spain with her friends, and a lorry hit them on the side of the road and killed her. And the whole thing is bound up with that, because strangely enough, the end of the first series, she goes up with UFO, and there she was, gone up, And so it's a strange memory for me because it's really tinged with that sadness. And it's a lovely kid. Terrible things that happened to her.
Yeah. Certainly was a tragedy. Yeah, it struck me in the next season when they recast it, because it sort of really stuck out to me that she was quite a beautiful girl. It was such a tragic loss, that one.
There's so many things you've done. I don't know how you managed to keep most of them in your head. Can I just say one other non-Doctor Who one before we get to 2 is that affected me was a role you played in The Professionals in an episode called The Fall Girl, and it was only a guest part. But it had such a major impact. I would have only been probably 9 at the time. And I remember my dad was a huge Professionals fan, and I wasn't usually allowed to watch it because it wasn't suitable for me. But I remember hearing your voice and saying, "Oh, she's in Doctor Who," and sitting down and watching it with my father. And of course, it's a fairly tragic end your character has. But it was just such a powerful role. And you and Lewis Collins throughout the whole show was just such a powerful force. What do you remember about that?
It's very interesting you say that, because we found problems with the script, Lewis and I, and we had quite a few arguments with the poor director, whose name I forgot. I think he was American. And we, for instance, I had to say things like she's only a bar girl or a barmaid or something. It sounded just awful. I said, I don't know, this is not what this character would say. This sounds terrible to say something. And he would say, you've got to say whatever it's talking. And so Lewis and I worked terribly hard to get these scenes to slightly alter in tone. And I think that really had an effect on our acting, because it did go quite well, because we were so worried it was going to be bad because of what the lines were saying. And I just remember that was the first time I think I completely contradicted the director when he said, you've got to say this line with the barmaid. And I had thought of another way of saying it. And I said it. And he said, no, Pam, you've got to say the right way. Go again. So I went again and I did it my way again. And he was really pissed off. And he said, you will do it this way. And I thought, this is it. Because if I do it his way, they're going to choose that way. And I did it a third time my way. And he gave in. I was actually inside, I was thinking, there's enough in the can and you can't fire me. You were right, actually. And it made sense. I wasn't just saying it to be difficult. I just thought the script didn't make, it wasn't right at that point. So we worked very, very hard to make that work. And sometimes if you get a script with a problem, you work much better on it than one that you can sail through, Well,
I was surprised looking through YouTube. There's actually been a hit of those scenes with you and Lewis Collins together, and a romantic song put over in slow motion, and the fans actually turned it into this big romance number.
Oh,
You
no.
can search up on YouTube. It's
How funny. Oh, gosh. I'll have to, what do you see that under? You just look up YouTube?
just search Pamela Salem and it comes up as it there. I think it might be Pamela Salem and Professionals, because I was actually looking for the final scene that you have, which is so dramatic in that. You know, as I said, it's burnt into my memory.
Because I did the other one with Martin Shaw. I played a completely different character in another one. So I did two of those, and nobody seemed to mind doing two completely different characters.
I think because people were constantly repeating things, it just didn't seem to have the same effect with TV back then, did it?
But it's funny you say that because I met up with Lewis in Los Angeles. He was there. And it's funny because people thought that we'd been much closer than we were. We weren't. He had a wonderful wife, and I had a wonderful, my darling Michael. And so it just shows that you can work really closely and give that feeling, even when nothing's going on.
So moving to Doctor Who, I believe the first connection with Doctor Who you had was you actually auditioned for the part of Leela.
Actually, I didn't. That's come into history that I was thought of for Leela. I never knew that. I never had the slightest knowledge about Leela. I went, as far as I knew, for Tooth. And I've heard that said occasionally. So I don't know whether somebody at one point said, well, do you want to see her for somebody else? You know, but certainly I didn't know that. I was only there for Tooth.
Oh, that's interesting. I mean, fan wisdom is the fact that you actually did go through the audition process, and the payoff for not getting the role was they gave you two, so then a voice part in Face of Evil.
I think I do Face of Evil. Was that
You were
before?
one of the voices, the computer voices.
Yes, was that before or after? That was after Tooth. Was it
Before it would have been.
before? That was, I was standing in the BBC club, and that's one of those things which you always hear happens in a club and never does. And a friend of mine who's a stage manager there, Gary, came up and said, oh, Pam, he said, you might be dead right for this computer voice. He went out of the room and came back, and I'd got it. I thought, oh, I must go to this club more often. But that was how I got that voice for that. Gary knew me from, was he on first playing on first playing of the I don't know, anyway, he knew me. And the man, and he just suggested me, and they said yes. So that was an interesting way of getting that.
Robots of Death is probably one of the fan favourites of all time in terms of Doctor Who. It's always in the top 10 of the polls, and Tooth is a large part of why it's so successful. But I mean, the whole show works. What's your memories of, at the time, did you realise it was going to be the hit that it was? What was it like working on that one?
No, we didn't realize it was going to be that hit, but it was one of the first things that did, they called it optical blue in those, with the eyes of the robots, that they could impose things on the eyes. Like, I think it's something green now it's called, probably not used at all now, but you could put stuff across it, optical blue, and the blue would wipe out whatever was standing behind it. So it was a fantastic thing for the robot's eyes to go around. And we were all absolutely intrigued by that. Plus the design, I think, of that one was so good. It was very, well, you can see even with the robots, it was so stylish. Didn't it? It had a look of its own. It looked terribly expensive. I don't know if it was terribly expensive to make, but it looked wonderful. And the rest was, it was just a great bunch of actors doing it, and lovely playing all these robots, and the danger and the costumes were wonderful. And we had the BBC electricians had a strike going on. I probably told this story and you've heard this, but they had an overtime strike going on, and they would just finish at 10. They wouldn't give us any extra time. And we were right at the end of that show, up in the gantries, Louise and I, in this room, with the robots coming in. The terror. We had to finish it by 10. And we were running up and back and down the gantry to do another take. Hugely, got to get it in, and then, boom, blackout. Somebody had to come up to us with a flashlight and get us down from up there, the two of us down to the ground in the dark. I don't know if you could do that now. It was amazing. I just remember we just got it in. I don't even know if we did it twice. We did it once or twice. I don't even know if we had a chance. I do remember rushing back to do it from the other angle, so I think we must have done it twice. I remember having hysterically Brown Blessed. I could not keep from laughing when I was with him. There's a couple of actors that are like that. And we just, he just knew how to make us laugh. And we had to come back and finish a scene. Also, I think it was something to do with the strike. But we had to come back and do a scene where I was given some sort of pill in the story. I was this high priestess, and apart from the fact that it literally, we laughed till we wept, and you have to be so careful because he put the makeup on again. He's a terribly funny man. He also had the most wonderful, interesting stories to tell, because you probably know them, but he experienced going up the St. Everest and with somebody who saw the Yeti or had the Yeti walking around the tent all night long with the strange smell and footsteps, and he had photographs of a Yeti that had been captured in the forest, and then he had some wonderful things of the Loch Ness Monster, which I was completely convinced about by the time I finished seeing what he had. So it was a delight working with him. That's what I remember. More than we had to come back for this particular scene out of the blue against the wall, just to finish off the scene somewhere. And again, one had to just be terribly careful not to laugh, break this scene and be serious, because he could just say something and crack us up. So we didn't fix that. Need some people like that around at the moment. I like to have a laugh. It's an interesting question. I don't know. I think sometimes I make a judgment about things, and it's not the things have not changed, it's I have changed. I've got older, so I don't see it from the same point of view, and I say, I don't think they're doing that anymore now. And they are, but just in a different place at a different time. I'm sure there must be people around who say, this is a very distinctive voice, George Clooney or something. I mean, who would know, I think, a lot of those voices, Morgan Freeman. But there are wonderful voices about. It's just that when you're particularly young, I think it sinks in. It's more intense. Maybe they can remember these voices.
Now, years later, you came on to play Doctor Who again in another very famous classic Doctor Who show. How did you end up coming back to play Dr. Rachel?
I don't know how. I think that was just lovely stroke of luck, like doing Professionals twice, coming back to do Jensen. And I'm so glad about that, because, of course, then that led to the spin-off, which I so enjoyed doing. Given that a character, a whole extra world and dimension to work in. So, yes, I don't know. I was the one didn't mind people coming again, obviously.
About 10 years. Did the show feel like it had changed a lot in terms of the whole rehearsal process and acting process?
Well, it was a different Doctor Who, so it was a different vibration. Both lovely actors. But had it changed? I just remember we had lots of rehearsal time for the Robots of Death, which I don't think people have that much rehearsal time now, do they? It's all too expensive. We were very lucky that we had rehearsal. I know Americans, it's like that. I think it's gone that way.
Now, you and Simon Williams and Karen Glenhill, you just clicked together as a team. It was as people had often joked about the fact that make a great spin-off. How did you first hear about Big Finish wanting to do a spin-off with the three of you?
I absolutely could not believe it. It was really astounding. I thought, how's that going to work? We're in a different time span, we were older. It was just one of those things. I think my agent told me, I have to do it. How will it work? And off we went and did it. And what is really nice is, because it was a great, and Hugh, of course, Ross, for being together, we were, the people who wrote got to know us and wrote more and more interesting scripts for us. They became much more complex and more fun to do. So that was another great pleasure. It didn't just stay. You know, they followed us and gave us more to do.
Where were you living at that stage? Had you moved to America by then, and how did you do the recordings?
I used to go back to England to do it. I mean, I'd go back to England and then they would say, when are you coming back? And we'd work it out around. There was going to be one last year. But anyway, and that I really thought, how am I going to do two? I think I was 28 or something, and I did two so very well to do somebody older. So I just tried to lighten the voice a bit. And fortunately, they said it's okay because I think they want to do another one. And they might do it with remote recording from England to here, which would be lovely. I would love to do another one.
So with the Tooth recordings, because for the robot series, you've been filming them in England as well. So working with David Collins, you actually went back to England to film those, or were they done remotely?
To record them, I went back to England. Yeah, I haven't done a remote one yet. I think that's coming if we do another one, because it's easy for them to do it. But while all this trouble about traveling is going on, it's to do it remotely. I should be fascinated how that works.
So what was it like going back and working with people like Simon and Karen, and then Hugh Ross being thrown into the mix for the countermeasures?
Well, first of all, if you work for Big Finish, it's probably one of the most civilized places in the world to work for. You're immediately accepted in there, and then you have these incredible lunches, which everybody always tells you about. I don't even eat lunch much. I certainly ate lunch there. Every day Toby would make a different cuisine. So it was like you'd be back in family, and you like working in some sort of amazing hotel. I think, or because we stop for this lunch and then we go on again afterwards. And oh, they're all a great bunch. Then we direct most of them. I think the rest were all right. And it's gone a long time, because how many series we've done with it, I'm not sure. I think it's gone on for about 8 years.
July 2012 was the first one that came out.
Yes, and you thought it was going to be only one, and then they would come to another one.
You did do one story with Tom Baker a few years ago. What was that like, getting back with Tom? That story was called The Silent Scream. Were you playing a silent movie star?
That's right. Yes. There was another one. Oh, Tom. Tom I met in York Rep before he did Doctor Who. And God, there's another person who could make you fall down with laughing. He just had a natural humor, and he left to do he was doing a show with Laurie Taylor, which I always remember. Donald Bodley ran York, and Donald Bodley had a problem with temper. He would blow up at anything, and he was quite nerve-wracking actually when he blew up. And I tried to avoid the circumstances where you might find the blow up. But nearly every man who ever worked there had a tremendous a fight with Donald in one way or another. My Michael O'Hagan, he had one when he went up there, and Tom got annoyed about whatever he was doing, and he left to do this late night cabaret where he played a dog. Wonderful dog. All he played was he just wore these hound ears, and Laurie was his trainer, but who was really very cruel. And he had these treats which he would eat. Then he'd eat them, Laurie. And then he would pull this prong collar, which would make the dog bark the right amount of times, And it was, we watched it night after night. And then finally at the end, he pulls it, and the dog sings Home Sweet Home. That's Tom. And really, he almost wept at the end. But he had us laughing, then he had us crying. Then he goes off with his trainer, and then you hear him having a punch up while he bites. He kills his owner off backstage. That's the end of that. It was a wonderful show. I remember it was so well done. And somebody saw him do the dog, and he said, and he went down to the National to do a donkey, I believe. So that dog led to the donkey, led him to go to the National, and they pressed it. And London Career become. And then Doctor Who. And he was a wonderful Doctor Who. He is a wonderful Doctor Who. Always go around.
Had he changed much since you worked with him back in the 70s?
Not when we met up. He must have changed. Because that, we've all changed. But he even looks different, except with white hair. And he's got a deep voice. I can hear him when he's doing voiceovers for other things. And that's Tom's voice.
It's unmistakable.
Yeah. But I just remember that dog, which was such a creative thing to do. And Don was furious. We went to help him and watch him, and we volunteered, we'd do the programs, and he was like, why are you going? He said, well, it's after 11 o'clock. It's nothing to do with him. He couldn't stop us going. He just was annoyed that we were going off to, as Tom had gone, had left the company. Poor Donald. Must have been hard life being bad-tempered all the time.
After doing 20 episodes of Countermeasures, they then decided to bring back Liz Toos. What were you expecting in terms of coming back to the character you played more than 40 years earlier?
I was actually terrified. I thought, I'm never going to get this right. I'm going to sound ridiculous, I thought. But it seemed to work.
Your voice really hasn't changed that much. I mean, it's spectacular.
You can lighten it and make it older and make it younger and so on. So I read a book for the BBC at the same time as we did the Countermeasures last time. I think that was called Hand of Fear. It's another Doctor Who spin-off. Yes. And there were umpteen characters in that, including a male who turns into a female. And you don't want to do 1,000 different voices. It can drive people mad. So I was thinking, how do I just intimate different voices? Which I hope went all right, because they want me to do another one. But so it must have gone right-ish. But I was wondering whether I have to tell the story, it's very strange. I was thinking, would I do lots of different voices? Or should I do, narration and just suggest voice? And I was having acupuncture. And my husband had died, sadly, at that point. And I went to this acupuncturist just down the road who knew my husband. And I was pondering this thing about the voices in my head. And I was lying there, and he said to me, the acupuncturist, I have been listening to Game of Thrones, he said, and I can't bear the way it's done with all these voices, these different voices. It is so annoying, I have to turn it off. And I thought, that's my Michael sending a message via the acupuncturist. Do not put on 1,000 voices. And I said to him, honestly, Oded, it's just what I'm thinking of in my head. And I was wishing Michael was here, because he's a very good director, Michael, and he was always such a help with my work. And I thought, I just got the answer to, out of the blue he said that. He didn't, it was the first thing he was saying. He said, I'm listening to these Game of Thrones. He said, it's driving me mad hearing this, all these different voices this man is doing. I mean, God bless the man. I'm sure a lot of people love lots of different voices, but it wouldn't have worked for me if I was doing millions. I just thought, oh, right, got the message. Thank you for directing that.
So with Robots, you were recombined with David Collins after many, many years, and sadly he passed away soon after the recording. Or was that the first time you'd seen him? How do you connect as a character after that many years?
No, I hadn't seen him. I'd seen him in things, I'd seen him doing shows. It was a lovely actor and such a specific face, that thin, slightly twisted nose, a very distinctive face. And I hadn't really known him very well. He was a robot, but I wasn't, didn't get to know him very well during Robots of Death. Yes, Robots of Death. The other one's Remembrance of the Dalek, isn't it? Jensen. Robots of Death, I knew he was there, but I didn't get to know him very well. I got to know him more that time, because we used to share a car and chat to each other, and they got to know him much better. And that gap was like, it's funny. I'm sure everybody finds that in their own field of interest. You come across people that you haven't seen for years, and it's like the years disappear, and it's like yesterday.
Yeah. So what does the future hold?
I have no idea. I go from day to day because I have a few health challenges now, and if I look too far ahead, I get into a panic. I just one day at a time and see what's going to happen. I hope it'll be audio work, because it's easier to do audio work now. I'm old and decrepit. I don't have to. I can sit down and do it, which is good. Because mobility is a little bit challenged nowadays. So I hope that audio work ahead. I think the next lot of people understand, the younger ones, that this world needs saving. You know, most of my friends' children are doing something in a field that's quite helpful for the world. Fantastic. You know, as long as they're doing that, there's hope.
So any regrets, anything you would rather have done or that you haven't done?
Regrets? No, well, yes, everybody wishes that they'd done things, I'm sure, which they haven't done. But I don't think there's much point in regretting. You just get on and hope you. No regrets. Get on with it. Stop moping.
Pamela, listen, thank you so much for your time. We so appreciate it. It has been lovely seeing you and speaking to you, so thank you so much for that.
Well, thank you very much for the interview, and it was very easy and very good fun. All the best to you. See what happens.
No known criminal activities or associations.
You still here, Moneypenny?
Asset
You should be
shipping,
in bed.
mining, timber, hotels,
James, we
cable
both
television.
should be.
Most assets
Instead, I'm
are
looking
series of
everywhere for you.
nominees in Liechtenstein.
Forget that. M wants to see you right now. It's panic stations upstairs. He's been with the Prime Minister all day. I think you're back in business, James. Welcome home.
Damn it. Just making progress with the Iranians. Grady gets revved up and starts quoting Churchill.
Yes, sir.
She gets aggressive. Iran gets defensive. This thing's going to spiral. I need to talk her down. Let's get her on the phone.
Sir?
We condemn the attack by Iran against 109 innocent men, women, and children aboard an unarmed United Britannia plane. This is a barbaric, monstrous crime committed against Great Britain, against Europe, against the United States, against humanity. There can be absolutely no justification.
No, I guess I'll have to wait till she's off camera.
Shall not stand.
Hello.
Hi, I'm Peter Benton.
Peter, I'm Marion Heathcliff.
Nice to meet you. My guest should be arriving soon.
She is already here. Will you excuse me for a moment?
Oh, sure.
This is my car.
Oh, got a rich boyfriend, have we?
You might. I don't have a boyfriend. This is my car, then it belongs to me.
Well, you certainly didn't get that working behind a bar.
That's because I don't work behind a bar. I think there's a few things we need to get straight from the off. I am not a barmaid, and I don't work for you, I work for the company. And part of my job is to make sure you don't step out of line, because I'm in charge, not you. I just came out with you tonight to see what makes you tick. Now I know you keep your brains in your trousers, I won't need to do it again. So if you wouldn't mind being a good dog and step aside, and I'll be on my way.
Oh, Lord!
What's the matter?
Could I ask you a terrific favour?
Of course.
You see, I've got one hell of a problem. Would you take your dress off for me?
Well, you English are certainly full of surprises, and so early in the evening?
No, I don't mean that. You see, Hester's wearing the same dress.
Mais non!
What is it? What do you want us to say?
Commander Yuvanov has gone.
Gone?
His voice pattern was still in the command program. The guard unit accepted his order for release.
Why didn't you erase his voice pattern?
You gave no such instruction.
Well, do it now and find him.
Pamela Fortuny Salem was born on the 22nd of January 1944 and passed away on the 21st of February 2024, aged 80. She had been happily married to actor and director Michael O'Hagan for 34 years, until his passing in 2017. For a tribute to Pamela, you can see an episode that Dwayne and I did for the Sirens of Audio podcast called Pamela Salem, A Tribute. On that episode, we are joined by actors Louise Jamison, Sophie Eldred, Karen Gledhill, and director Ken Bentley.